Do you think you could have worked harder?
100% could have been. People don't realise you might get one shot, one real shot. Now, you have to have your best game in order to get another game. And the likelihood of having your best game week in, week out is really low, especially if you never played at that level. So you have to take it.
If somebody listening now, Ross, that wants to make the jump to start their own business, how do you make the jump?
Finding people that can help you in any way you can on the bits you're not good at, and focus on the bits that you're really good at. Just give it a crack and be really good at what you're good at.
So why did you go ahead and start your own business?
I'd say...
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Founders with Nick, with your host, Neal Langridge. And we have an absolute cracker for you today. We have Neal. Ross is on the show.
Hello.
He is an ex-professional rugby player, so probably the most famous individual we've ever had on the show, which is...
Scraping the barrel, Nick.
which is mega. I actually got introduced to you through Joey. Joey Speed, episode 6 out now. And he told me to definitely interview you, so this is where we are. I had a really interesting conversation with Joe. If you haven't listened to it now, listeners, can you go please stop this and then go listen to that and then come back to this? That would be really helpful. But no, Ross, well, thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. A tough act to follow after Joey Speed as well.
Joey Speed, no. Well, I suppose then, I think some people will know you because we have a large rugby following on the podcast.
Oh, really?
I think about maybe 5 people
there we are.
out of the 12 listeners.
Well, if they watched Bristol Bears versus Wasps rugby in 2019, they may have heard of me, and if they've not forgotten me already, but who knows? Who knows, mate?
Okay. I think the first question is... be really interested because obviously we're going to cover like topics of high performance as well, your business now, what you learned from rugby. But I think the initial question is why rugby? Was it, what was it in particular? Was it your dad? Was it your family? Or were you just naturally a really good player?
Why rugby? I think essentially a lot of my mates at school were playing rugby down the local rugby club. At that time, I was playing football. We're talking here about the age of 7, by the way. So it's not there wasn't too much sort of cognition around this. They were playing, so I went down, enjoyed it, went, okay, really enjoy this, quite good at it, then got really into it, became fanatical about rugby growing up, wanted to be a professional rugby player. And then probably around 13, when you start realising, are you actually good enough? I stopped thinking I was good enough. I thought this is probably not going to happen because you see all these other kids getting bigger than you, faster than you, and you think, this isn't really for me. So I stopped telling people that's what I wanted to do because I kind of felt they'll just tell me that. They'll laugh. That's what I kind of thought. And they would have been fair enough. So I didn't really stand out massively. I was a good player until I was about, I'd say 17, 18, when I filled out a bit, got a bit quicker, and then got picked up by an academy. So I was quite a late bloomer in terms of professional rugby players. So I joined London Irish Academy in my final year at school and up 6th form, and then signed a professional contract straight away after that, and then that was it. So most people are in academies from the age of about 13, 14. There are even later bloomers than me that come out of uni, but on the whole, it's quite late.
How do you get, so somebody listening now who potentially like 15, 16, how do you get into an academy? Is it a connection, or is there an academy open day?
I don't know what it's like now. Back in the day, you went along to county trials, or there was a thing called School of Rugby back then. I don't know if they still have it, but essentially they'll have a way of selecting players. And now that 3 clubs have gone down in Wasps, London Irish and Worcester, I'm assuming that's going to be even harder because the catchment areas are bigger. But essentially, I would say if you want to get picked up by an academy, go to as good a rugby school as you can find. There are some good state schools out there as well, but that's now hard. Or go to a really good rugby club, and if you keep playing well, eventually someone will spot you. But it is hard. Some people do slip through the net.
Were your parents, always asking this, but were your parents really supportive of you when you wanted to take that a little bit more seriously? Or some families are always like, oh no, you need to do that, or do this, or this industry. Were they like, actually, Ross, do what you want?
They were pretty relaxed with it. They were super helpful. Everything. I think my dad was involved coaching at the local rugby club. Okay. My mum was helped out with all the team stuff as well. But I think they were more worried about my brothers. So I was just gone playing rugby, doing my thing. It was those two that needed more attention. So no, they were really good, really supportive, pretty standard as well. So standard's a horrible word. They were fantastic. Came to every single game that I ever played, or as many as they could, and were yeah, they never pushed me into anything.
Was when you joined London Irish, was there anything in particular you remember thinking, actually, shit, this is pretty tough? Or was there any moments you're like, my God, I'm about my depth at all?
I mean, physically, you turn up. So when I joined London Irish at 18, I was probably about 102 kilograms, maybe. And I'm 6'5", so that's quite light. And I looked around and all these, they're men. And you're essentially a boy. I was skinny, I probably turned up skinny, spotty, big nose, thinking, oh my God, I'm just not up to these guys' level. And the first time you get in a training session, you get hit by one of them and you go, oh my God. Because I was always big enough to deal with other school kids. And then you realize my technique isn't actually good enough to deal with these guys who are way bigger than me. And I think you realize very quickly it's professional sport where you're at. It's not like other professions where you can kind of have this delusion that carries you at first. That was one thing. I hit a guy in a ruck, trying to clear a guy out of a ruck, called Dan Leo. If you have any rugby fans, they'll know who Dan Leo is. A massive Samoan lock. And I flew into this ruck to clear him out, and he just didn't move. And that was a real moment in my head. I was like, okay, shit, we need to put on some size here. So I started eating, trying to put on size. Not necessarily the healthiest way to do it, but I was naturally quite skinny. My body wanted to be skinny. So I had to force it out of that habit, which took a bit of a while and changing habits. But yeah, that was one big thing. You arrive at just the size and the skill level that you're just not used to at a schoolboy level.
Different leagues. So when you got offered the contract, did you see that coming? Did you see that? Or was it a little bit more like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah, I think at that point, so basically the way it works is you have you're in the academy team, London Irish, and maybe there's half that starting team of that academy team you kind of think might be selected for an academy contract. And I knew I was in that group. I was like, there's maybe a good chance. Final game of the season, the coach comes up and says, just so you know, you'll probably hear at some point whether we want to bring you on or not. And they only said that to about 7 or 8. So I kind of thought I've got 70-30% chances, 70 in my favour.
Nerve-wracking. That just sounds nerve-wracking.
And me at that time as well, I really thought, okay, this is it now. And I remember getting the call. I was sat in my car outside school, and this guy called Billy Clark called me and said, hey Ross, they've had a look at you. They'd like you to sign a 1-year deal professionally. And I was just over the moon. This was amazing. Went round, told like a load of my teachers, a load of my friends.
Mega.
And that was it. But, it's funny because I think you want people to think you're living a bit more of a professional sportsman, glamorous lifestyle. And actually, that first year contract is $8,000 a year. So
get out of town.
I'm serious. It's $8,000 a year, and they put you in an academy house. You don't have many expenses, and also your frame of reference isn't that high. So I'd never really had a salary before.
Yeah, and
you're coming from being at school, having you're living at home, so you don't really you don't worry about that as much. And then you move into a house, and suddenly you've got £670 coming into your bank every month. And for me, that was like, that's money. House paid. They cook you a fair few meals. You're not used to very much. I have very sort of, expensive taste at that time. That said, I did do one thing that I probably, looking back, I must have looked like an absolute weapon doing this. But at that time, they don't do it anymore, but there used to be these great deals on cars for professional sportsmen. Now, this would have worked well, I imagine, for footballers. Maybe it paid off in some way. But rugby players got access to these same deals where you'd get a brand new Mercedes on a lease deal for a ridiculous, low price. And I got approached by one of their agents. And they were like, oh, there's this Mercedes C250 for £199 a month. And I'm there looking at my $670 a month, coming in thinking, yeah, why not? That would be fun. And I did it. And I remember some of the senior players were literally like, what are you doing? Did it for 1 year. And then, it was so stupid looking back. But I wanted people to think I had more of a...
look, we've all done it. I was in my 20s. I think people that know me, I had 4 cars in my 20s. And I was an absolute idiot. It was an idiot. Because I stupidly equated that with status. And I was like, people... And I also loved cars, but I just remember at 29, I was like, what have I done with that cash? I was like, well, I'm an idiot.
But you do, don't you?
But I think you've got to do it. I think you've got to do it to then appreciate not doing it, if that makes sense.
Well, I think you can, if you can look back and go, that was a bit arrogant. I think it's
personal growth.
Again, you're on $8,000, right? Like you're on $8,000, and I wanted people to maybe think that I was a bit.
Yeah, I know.
And I think it's the lie is that people don't care about that sort of stuff. And on the whole, a lot of, especially men, probably, you want to seem a certain way. And I wasn't really playing at that time either, so I was in the academy training all the time, not really getting much of a shot. You learn a lot in that time about how to actually be a professional sportsman.
Was it quite lonely?
No, I wouldn't say it's lonely, because you're in an academy house, you got your mates. That was all fine. Really enjoyed that part of it. And you still have your mates from home are all going to uni, so you go visit them. Enjoy that. But I think you, at that age, when you're 18, I think you're trying to establish yourself. I also had the foolish thought that from 18 moving into professional sport, it would be a lot easier. So I thought I'd go, well, now I'm professional, I'll now start for London Irish, and then I'll probably get picked by England and then go play for the Lions. That's in my head. Well,
is that
it now goes quite quickly?
Yeah, that's not I don't think that's an unhealthy vision.
It's not unhealthy, but it was delusional. It was like you just don't realise. Then that was one of the things. You get into the team, you look around, you go, I'm barely going to get into the A-League side of this team. At this point, look how good these players are. And I think that's the disconnect you don't have. You're thinking about yourself in your frame of reference, which is the school team. I'm great, without thinking of the frame of reference of the professional players that are, unbelievable. That's all they do. They're bigger, stronger, faster, with quicker minds, better decision making, know how to be a professional, and you don't have any of that. Some players come out of school and they do have it like that. Someone like Marcus Smith, but it's definitely a hard transition there. And then maybe that's what makes you want to do silly things like buying a car, because you want to feel like you're doing it and you're not doing it in the way you want to do it. But anyway, I don't want to fixate too much on my car.
It's
a tragic time.
It's super relevant. So then, so the contract. So talk me through, did you manage to break into the first team at London Irish at all? Or what was the next step after the contract?
So I was there for 3 years, and the first 2 years I didn't play any top line games where I'm actually selected as one of the starter. I played some games that in a football equivalent would be, I don't know, maybe a Carling Cup or whatever it's called now, Carabao Cup, or like an FA Cup early rounds, that sort of thing. So not proper games. In my third year, we actually got relegated to Championship, and I did start in 2 games there. That was it though. 3 years, 2 games starting, and that was in the Championship as well. And then at the end of that, so I did definitely developed and learned a lot in that time, but I wasn't ready. And I got released. So I then went to a club that I'd been on loan at called London Scottish for 1 year, played 27 games there, really enjoyed it. Started to find out, I now understand what makes me tick. I know what I need to do. And that earned me a call up to go and play for Wasps, which was my hometown team.
What was the you mentioned it there, what was the switch? What did you think, okay, now I get it?
I think there's this idea and this difference between being a passenger and a driver that I figured out. And if you think about it like a train, you're either the passenger or the driver. Now, if you're the passenger, you're on the right train going to the right place, so you can very much feel like you're in control of where you're going, but actually you don't have control over the pace, where you stop, any of this, but you have the illusion of control, whereas the driver has control over all of that. And I think most people in sport and life are in the right job, doing everything that's asked of them, and they have this feeling that they're on the right path, but actually they're not driving that ability. So I realized I'm doing all the training I need to do. I'm going to the gym, I'm turning up to the session, I'm doing what the coach asks me, I'm doing my feedback, but I'm not doing anything outside of that. So I'm not staying, I'm doing a bit of extras, but I'm not really pushing it. I'm not really pushing my case. I'm not desperate to play whenever I can. I'm a bit scared of failure, all these sort of things. Then I moved to the league below, and I realised, firstly, if I don't make it in this league, there's no professional league below this. I'm going to have to get a job. You don't have a degree, you're not ready for that. So I started doing stuff on the outside as well, just to prepare myself, which has really helped now. But I realised you need to be desperate to play. When you don't play, you're not as good. You also need to back yourself a bit more. You need to do more than what you've currently been doing. So then when I went to Wasps, I'd had this year of playing 27 games. I was like, you cannot now go back to where you were at London Irish. You have to be desperate. So I did, and I was desperate to play in A-League games. I'd try and make sure that I was really driving as much as I could for myself. And one of the best things I ever did was the first team, and I was the first team player at this point at Wasps, squad player. So again, nothing too special, but we got given a week off, and the academy were then going to play in this LV Cup game, which is, again, that sort of FA Cup thing. And I was like, I've not really played. Why am I don't want this week off. And so I think I was the only first team player that rejected the week off and said, I want to play, much to the dismay of this young academy centre that thought it was his chance. I said, no, I need to play, because then the next LV Cup game I was probably going to play in with other squad players in the first team. And then because I'd played that game, I was much more prepared for the next game, and I played quite well. And then a winger left, a guy called Christian Wade, went to the NFL that year. And so there was this spot on the wing, and there was a choice between a winger and me as a centre who'd been playing well. And I got the shot. And then I took it. That was my best game I ever played. Started on the wing, out of position, scored 2 tries and assists. That was the highlight of my career. And don't get me wrong, I then made a mistake because I played well for maybe 7 games, then got injured, then I came back. My expectations had shifted to someone who starts, and I forgot how I got there. And I got there by being desperate and doing everything I could. And then I started acting like the player that has almost made it, and I hadn't made it. But then my mindset on what I wanted from rugby had shifted anyway. I had actually had a bit of taste of playing in the Premiership and the Champions League, against some great players. I thought, is this actually what you want from life? Like, that wasn't as amazing as I think you were expecting it to be. And then realised I want to actually really, I want to wake up excited about what I'm doing. And that for me is one of the biggest measures of success I have is, do I wake up excited? And I wasn't at that point. And I'd forgotten what got me there.
That's pretty interesting, actually. So I think the off week and saying no to that was obviously a bit of a catalyst, wasn't it, for you to get in. Interesting about that guy going to America. Is that common for people to go to the NFL?
No, it's not common, and you have to be.
Was he enormous or something?
So Christian Wade, he actually went to my school as well.
Fine.
He will be on track to be the top try scorer in Premiership history, because he's come back now, plays for Gloucester. Lovely guy, great player. And for him, it was something he always wanted to try and achieve. Lewis Rees-Zammit, a Welsh winger, he's trying to do it at the moment. I think it's the Jaguars, I think. Could be wrong. So a few players have done it, and I think Alex Gray did as well. But it's very, very hard to achieve that, but it was something he wanted to have a go at.
Question, Rob. I was just thinking, just digesting your previous point, do you think, on reflection, you could have worked harder in terms of being like more desperate, as you put it, to get into that team and break in?
Yeah, I 100% could have been. And I did it at the start, that first half of that year, and I got the rewards. And you can tell because the coach can see it. The coach can feel you're desperate. And if you're a coach and you can see this person is desperate to perform, that gives you confidence to pick them. And when it comes to 50-50, you give yourself that edge. To make it in professional rugby is super hard. I think people don't realise you might get one real shot in a proper game. Now you have to have your best game in that game in order to get another game. And the likelihood of having your best game week in, week out is really low, especially if you never played at that level. So you have to take it. And then you get another game, you have to take it again. Most players don't have a good game every game, because you're playing against, you've got 29 other people involved, 15 trying to ruin your game, then 14 that may not do the right thing at the right time. So you don't actually have that much control. And, we spoke a little bit before this about pressure and, what is performance under pressure. And for me, it's that ability to perform consistently, week in, week out. And it's very, very hard to do. And what causes pressure as well. I used to be terrified of playing every week, not because I thought I played badly, but because I thought I wouldn't. I knew what I could do, and I wasn't sure if I was going to do it. And when you look at pressure, a lot of the time, pressure walks hand in hand with uncertainty. So if you go out to play a game, if you told me 100% I'm going to have a fantastic game, everything's going to go my way, I'm actually not going to be nervous because I know what's going to happen. When there's uncertainty, that's where pressure really becomes a thing, because rugby inherently is an uncertain game. That's why you try and control as much as you can in preparation, this and that. But you're still nervous because 15 guys on the other team trying to muck you up, 14 guys on your team. You've got a referee, you've got a bounce of a ball. So you know what you can do, but you're uncertain as whether you can do it. So you're absolutely shitting yourself like going into the game. It's the same thing with all things. Anything you feel pressure around is probably uncertainty. So have you ever given a best man speech?
Yes. I've got one on Saturday.
Oh, brilliant. Here we go. Right. So this is a great example. So I've given 2. Now, I fancy myself as a bit of a speaker. I like my ability to speak. It's one of my best skills. Now, I had to give a speech at my brother's wedding, the first one I had to do. I've never been as nervous in my entire life. My heart was flying out of my stomach, and I was looking like, why on earth are you so nervous? And I had to drink 3 Guinnesses beforehand. I was just necking them because I was so nervous. Like I can't do anything feeling like this. And you look at that, you can practice that speech as many times as you want. You can even do it in front of people, and you're trying to raise your level of certainty. But the problem is, when you step out on that wedding day, you don't know how that crowd on that day is going to respond. And that is nerve-wracking, because it's a big moment. You don't want to muck it up for everyone involved. And you're looking at it, and you're looking at that first joke that you're going to tell, and you're thinking, I don't know if this is going to land. What if this doesn't land? If this doesn't land, what will I do? And I have no idea. And that's where pressure comes from.
Sure.
And so that's the ability to perform under pressure consistently is what makes difference. So coming back to my point there, my best game was a good game, but I couldn't produce it consistently enough to want a starting spot. So I got my shot. I did maybe for 5 games, got injured, came back, had a few opportunities I was given opportunities to try and work my way back in. I didn't take them. I wasn't good enough because I couldn't do it consistently enough. Now, once you've played maybe 15 games really well, you've got a bit of space to have a bad game. But I probably never got to that point.
Didn't have that buffer.
No, I never did. But that's not one else's fault. That's my fault for not. There'll be luck involved, but equally, I didn't do enough. I could have done more. Looking back, 100% could have done more.
Do you regret anything?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so much you regret looking back. I know a lot of people will say, I don't regret anything because it brings me this determinism point of view. And okay, take that apart. Assume I end up in the same place anyway. Would I have done things differently? Yes, I would have done.
It's really refreshing for you to hear that. We have some people on the show, and also I've listened to other podcasts. So like, nope, I make every decision. I stand by it.
There's something like, man, I have so many regrets. Really? So many things I wish I didn't drink, didn't do, and I didn't speak this way, didn't speak. I wish done loads of things differently. Honestly. And you can always tell if someone has regrets, because sometimes late at night you wake up with your eyes wide open thinking about something. That's a regret. Whatever it is, that's your regret.
I've definitely got. So you've been, is it fair to say you've been around high performing culture for a while?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been around high performance for a while. You enjoyed rugby career was, you got a taste of the good stuff. Probably didn't put in they use this word discipline, don't they? Discipline's a big one. Consistency. I think what I'm hearing from you, which is really interesting, is how fine the margins are. Like, you need to be honest. Like, otherwise, the coach knows, people know, and it just gives me a new perspective, like, of just the top performing athletes in the world. Like, obviously, football related, like Cristiano Ronaldo. How is that guy still going? Yeah. Like all of these things you've just mentioned there. So so where are you now in your career? So You've started a few games, did the LV Cup, then you obviously still at London Irish, was it?
Yeah, and so I did London Irish. I'll just give you a quick summary of my career, because so I did 3 years London Irish, then I dropped out. I was alone in a few clubs there. Then I dropped down to London Scottish for a year, then went up to Wasps for 2 years. Then I realised I'm just not enjoying this anymore. Had a really honest conversation with my coach about where I was, realised that there was not that much light at the end of the tunnel. I needed a lot of people to get injured for me to do well. And I thought, I want to travel. I actually want to go and enjoy. I've seen this American league pop up. So spoke to my agent. He sorted me a contract over in America very quickly, 6 months in Seattle. COVID hit, came back, played for London Irish. Again, the new coaches, and actually played 8 games in the Premiership during that period.
Mega.
Which is fantastic.
Well, that must be really strange, because you prepared yourself to be like, oh, do you know what? It's not for me. You've gone then to another league, abroad, potentially not as strong, COVID, come back, and then actually what you've been trying to achieve for the last however long, you managed to do like 8 appearances is pretty.
Yeah, it was great, and it was a short-term deal, so I actually had the option of signing at London Irish for a 1+1 during COVID. Okay. They offered me that, or it was going back to America. And I just remembered the feeling of being in America, waking up and going to training and being excited, enjoying what I was doing. I thought you'd be a real idiot to go back knowing what you're going to get as a squad player. I would have been a squad player at London Irish. I wasn't going back as a sort of marquee signing. Yeah. So I decided to reject that, but they still said, all right, well, look, come along for 3-4 months. It'd be great give us that depth while we look for a permanent replacement. So I did that, and then went back to America for second year, came back, played for Saracens for a bit. Again, I was only there for a couple of months and didn't really feature. I was just injury cover, and no one got injured. So, but that was a real insight into culture. I did one more season out in Seattle, but I'd had a really bad concussion in my second to last year in Seattle, and kind of, it shook me a little bit. I felt fine normally, but I'd go back onto the pitch and blur over. So I kind of thought, if I get another knock here, I don't want to get to a point where I have to retire. I want to go out on my own terms. I don't want to have all the symptoms that come from, people that do have to retire. So, and then that was my career. Decided to retire, and then had the transition into work.
Well, I mean, really, really interesting. I would love to know how. So, with people listening now who will be like, okay, look, and you can maybe take this from an industry to another industry. So, what was there? When did you? Okay, obviously, you started to realize because your performance was maybe dropping. You thought, have I got the hunger in the belly anymore for rugby? So, why did you go ahead and start your own business?
So just to actually, one point I really want to quickly touch on before you said about these these fine margins as well. You'd be interested. Cristiano Ronaldo's, these Johnny Wilkinsons, these people that have redefined what being professional looks like. I'd say very few professional sportsmen are even close to that. By the way, I think a lot of them like the idea that they are super professional. If you speak to them, they'll make out. I would have done if I'd come on this podcast in the middle of my career. You would have thought I was the highest performing person around. Trust me, because everyone likes to think that they are, but actually, if you go and observe, most people do a little bit of extras, a little bit after, and they go home, and then they chill, they go for a coffee, they do this, they do that. The actual amount of people that are obsessed with getting better in professional sport is way lower than you'd think. But everyone likes to present this image of these animals.
Sure.
I guarantee you, don't listen to what they say. If you went and watched, you'd see. There are a few, and it's still way more professional than it would have been before, but these obsessive athletes that you're talking about, the Ronaldo's, the Johnny Wilkinsons, is less so.
Well, that's really interesting. There's a saying which is believe nothing you hear and half of what you see.
Yeah, that's perfect. I do culture work with teams now on creating high performance environments. I feel a little bit like Gordon Ramsay when he does his kitchen nightmares.
Oh yeah,
because do you know what it is?
Great show,
fantastic,
great
show.
And
I so often. You watch Gordon Ramsay when he goes in, and if you've never seen an episode before, you'd watch Gordon Ramsay go in and he speaks to the owner, and it's like, and you hear this owner, and you're kind of like, I feel really sorry for his owner. He's put all his heart and soul and money into this business, and the customers just aren't coming, and the staff don't want to work, and all this.
Scratching his head,
poor person.
Yeah.
And then Gordon goes and talks, and everyone who's seen it will know. You go and talk to all the staff, and everyone's pointing fingers at this awful owner that is screwing everything up and awful. Go to any company, it's exactly the same. You speak to the top person, and I've created this great culture of all this stuff, put everything in place.
Ross,
I'm always open to feedback, all this stuff. And you go and speak to everyone else, and you go, oh, right, it's their fault. They're maniacal. They don't take feedback. They scream at people. They do this, they do that, and they wonder why.
So why is everybody leaving? I don't know. Yeah. No reason. It's a great business.
It's like, I think I don't know why. I think it must be. I know my brother will be screaming if he watches this, but there are a certain amount of inherent beliefs that most people like to have about themselves.
Yeah.
We all like to think that we're a good person on the whole. Even if we do bad things, it's because we had to do bad things, not because we're a bad person. And I think it's. Have you ever heard of the book Radical Candor?
Yes, but I forgot you wrote it. Yeah, it was a book.
I'll whiz through. Yeah, it's really simple. Essentially, it's about getting the balance right between care and challenge, and it's a great fundamental for any manager out there. The highest performing teams have high levels of challenge. They're going to make you really work hard, but they're also going to support you hugely in doing that. And when you have that, you have this great team. Most people fall into that bottom left, which is we're not really going to challenge you, and we're also not really going to support you. It's called the apathy zone. Now in Radical Candor, I can't remember the woman's name who wrote it, but it's really good, really fantastic.
Not Mark Manson.
No, it's not Mark Manson.
Fine.
It's maybe Kim something. I can't remember, but it's excellent.
Yeah.
But what she essentially says is, with honesty, so it's all around honesty, use the same framework. So you need to be absolutely honest with someone, and even if that's hard to do, but also really care about them, because when you really care about someone, they're going to take that and it's going to drive them forward. Now, what a lot of people do is get stuck in that toxic compassion zone where you don't want to upset someone if you don't tell them, and that's an awful thing to do. But also, you get these people who are really honest but don't care about you, and they're just maniacal, awful people. Now, where managers go wrong is maybe they read that book and they go, well, that's brilliant. Well, I have this inherent belief that I'm a good person, so I'm doing the caring thing already, but they're not actually doing it. So they assume, I've read the book, what I need to do is be more honest with people.
Okay.
And so they suddenly go on like a tirade of telling everyone what they think because they've got this radical candor now, without realizing you haven't actually done the caring thing. You just kind of assume you've done that. Bit like an open door policy. People think, why does no one ever give me any feedback? I'm so open to feedback. And it's like, well, no one is really that confident they're going to just walk through your door and start giving you feedback. And probably you've created an environment where someone gave you feedback once and you react in a certain way. People are watching. They're not listening, they're watching. They saw it one time, they don't want to do it. So if you actually want feedback, you need to create an outlet where people can do that. You need to go up to someone and say, I really want to know what you think about this. Can you tell me? And that gives them a chance to do it. Or constant feedback forms, anonymous, so people can actually have some way. If you just say, open door policy, come and let me know, you're hoping that someone has a natural level of confidence.
Lazy.
To do that.
It's also, I think it's quite lazy, that. I think it's quite lazy.
It's also bullshit. And this is the thing. So if you think I am open to feedback, maybe you are. Maybe you are open to feedback, but you're not giving anyone the opportunity to actually do it.
The signals, you're not giving them signals.
Same with radical candor. I give this person, I'm already doing the caring thing. I care about everyone. But you've not shown it. You've not displayed it. You've not actually gone out of your way to be caring. Because when you do that, now, it's like feedback. You can be really technical with feedback. So I'm really splurging on this for you. But feedback, everyone wants to know, how do you give feedback in a really excellent way and do this and this and this? And there are ways that you can really refine feedback techniques. So start with this and do this, and then, boring stuff, but it works. But essentially, if you don't have a good relationship with that person, it doesn't matter. If I get on really well with you, Nick, and you know that I care about you getting to where you want to go, you actually don't care about how I give feedback because you know it's in your best interest.
Trust.
It's building trust, building respect. And it's like, spend more time on that. I don't care about how you layer your feedback and the way you introduce it with a good and then a bad and then a this and that. I don't care. If I know you care about me, you can lean across the desk and go, Ross, what on earth are you doing there? That's not up to your best standard. You can do better than I go, Nick's right, okay, right, back in. Because I know you trust.
So the delivery is irrelevant, really.
Well, no, it's not irrelevant. Well, some people get it wrong, but the most important thing is that you've built trust and respect with that person in a relationship. Focus far more on that, and the feedback part, it becomes, maybe it's 10% of it. 90% of it is a relationship built.
So, Ross, obviously now you go into businesses and you try and turn them from sort of medium performing to high performing. I'd be really interested in how, in terms of your first initial analysis, what do you do? What do you look for in a business? Let's say you go to a small business, 20, 25 people, and they came to you and said, look, Ross, we're really keen to level up our performance here. Do you have a litmus test of or a scale when you go, actually, do you know what, guys, you're about here through my investigation? How does that process look like?
Yeah, okay. So when I do a full company analysis and I'm going to work with a team for a long time, there's a few things I do. So firstly, what I'll do is the boring technical stuff. So if you're not interested in this, press fast forward 15, maybe press it 4 times. But essentially, I'll do a big survey, get a massive amount of data on everything. But a survey alone, and this is where most people stop, is kind of irrelevant because I may have a gripe against someone, that's why I put this, or I don't really care about doing the survey, I want to get back to my work. So I might just click things in. So it might give me a bit of information. But what it then does, I'll then go and have a conversation with every single person. I want to go into your answers. It's anonymous, but I do know what you said, and it's going to be between you and I. And I'm saying, Nick, you said you don't think there's any feedback. Why did you say that? And you say, well, I thought it was this. I'm saying, but that's not, do you actually get feedback? And then we start to get to the bottom of things. And I'll start honing in on things like this. But if you want to know what the sort of framework I actually use, it's something I found reading a book by a guy called Tony Hsieh, founder of Zappos. He actually died recently, but Zappos was essentially the Amazon for shoes and then got bought by Amazon for 1.2 billion a little while back. Now, he built a really interesting company culture. And at the end of his book, he said he'd read loads of books around happiness, and he found this formula for 4 things that lead to happiness. Now, the first one is control or autonomy, or perceived control or autonomy. You need to have that feeling that what you do has an impact on your outcome. If you turn up and know no matter what you do, it doesn't really affect what you do, you get this apathetic. Big connection between lack of control and depression as well. You need to, that's why people a lot of time get depressed. I don't want to get too medical on that because I'm not qualified, but there's a lot of research on that. Second one is perceived progress. So you need to feel like you've got control over your outcome and you're actually making moves toward it. So that's the first 2. The third one is connectedness. So you need to walk in and have lots of people in that office that you have deep and good relationships with. Massive thing for happiness. And the fourth one is purpose and vision. You have to feel you're going after something greater.
Hardest one. I think that sounds like the hardest one.
Without doubt.
Yeah.
So, and you can't, I have lots of friends that struggle to find it and they don't really know, I'll do this job. I was like, well, what do you like? I don't really know. I don't really like anything. Like, I do this sort of corporate job and I don't really have any passions outside of that. So where does that leave me? And then I know Simon Sinek has his interesting ways of finding your why. I think your why isn't something that let's not, I don't want
yeah.
But so that's a framework for happiness. Now, this is a framework that also works with business and culture. So essentially, when I look at environment, I look at, do people have autonomy? Do people feel that they can affect their outcome? Because if they don't, that's a big problem. Because you're going to get lots of people leaving because they're looking for something better now where they do feel like they've got control. Are people progressing? Tony Hsieh did a really interesting thing where the standard promotion was 18 months after joining the company. And so what he did, he went, let's just scale it. Let's do one every 6 months. And it will be a smaller promotion. You'll end up at a similar, maybe a slightly higher place, but you'll have 3 promotions. And they realized that their average tenure improved massively because people felt...
I can understand that, yeah.
And even if
that
it
makes
is
sense.
Sometimes you do have to fabricate these things. Don't tell people that's why we're doing it. We want to give you a sense of progression. So we're going to add in 2 more meaningless promotion. Just do it and then say it's actually because we need a slightly different... People don't need to know what you're doing all the time. I had this one coach that used to do these sort of interesting coaching things, but he'd tell us all about why he was doing it because he wanted the ego boost of, I want you to know how brilliant I am. He didn't want the actual outcome it gave. So people don't need to know how clever you are. Just do the thing for the outcome you want. So I also look at progression, like how are people progressing? Are people stagnating? Do they have an idea of progression plans as well? Do you, Nick, you're at whatever company you're working at, do you have a really clear idea of how you progress it? If you say no, that's a big question I ask. That's a big problem. And we need to fix that quickly. It's a quick win. And then connectedness. So this is something I look at called collisions. So collisions are this idea of if you and I meet in the hallway, we are colliding. That's it. I had one guy that actually said he didn't like the term collisions. It was too confrontational.
Okay.
And I was like, okay,
don't mind a collision.
Fine, call it whatever you want.
Don't mind a collision.
Yeah. But anyway, that's a collision. So the whole idea around this is if you and I collide, it's a little bit like that sort of gym friend meme where the first time you meet someone, you give them like a little nod and then the second time you give them a...
There's a great YouTube sketch.
Maybe fine, but you give a little hello and then next time it's a how are you, and then it's like you're suddenly high-fiving and then it's like, how's your thing? How did you get that job last week? And all this sort of, now you're friends, right? So that's a collision. And the thing behind that is knowledge sharing between people only happens after relationship building. If you're in an organization, if you're in a different department, I'm never going to walk up to you and say, hello, Nick, my name is Ross. I'd like to learn some things about what you do in your job, and I'm going to share some things, and there might be some synergies there, because you'd think you're a freak. Like, you'd never do that.
I would run.
Yeah, exactly. Weirdo. However, if I saw you in the hallway and nodded, and then suddenly we build this up, and we start a relationship, I'm sat in a sales meeting, and you're marketing, and they're like, marketing, I've done this, and this. I'm like, oh, actually, I know Nick, you might be able to sort this out really quickly. Suddenly we've now solved a problem quickly that we wouldn't have done if we didn't know each other. So Tony Hsieh had this idea, we need people colliding all the time. We don't know where it will go, but we know that if people are colliding more, there's more knowledge sharing, organizational capacity is higher. So he did something where they had 3 entrances to the building, and so he took away 2. So everyone had to basically go through the same entrance because he knew there'd be more head nods.
Is that so?
And then leads to it. So for example, I had a company and they all used to go for coffees all the time, but they kind of went on their own. But they loved coffee. So we went, all right, you can still go for coffee whenever you want, but you have to have a coffee break, 10:15. Everyone has to go because we knew at that point X amount of collisions are happening, and we know that people are now more connected. And I've got a good culture, and that's happening. You can't measure the benefits. You can probably measure collisions if you have some fancy software, but you don't know, okay, this many collisions equals this many X more sales. But I guarantee you the knowledge sharing is then going to be much higher, and people are going to enjoy coming in because they're spending more time, they know more people, they get more serendipitous interaction with people they like. So that's the 3. And then the 4th one is that purpose meaning. Do people actually have an idea why they're turning up, and is it aligning? Are they being recruited in the right way? And then you have that difference between attrition and development. But that's kind of what I look for. That's a long answer, but if I look at those 4 things, same thing with the gym, right?
Yeah.
Firstly, if I give you a program that has so much in it that you're like, I don't have control over that, I don't think I can actually do it, you're not going to do it. So it needs to be simple, you have control over. Do you make progression quickly? you'll carry on doing it. Do you go to a gym where you've got 5 people in there that you actually look forward to seeing? You're more likely to actually go. And then do you have a vision of what you want to look like as a person? Okay, you got those 4 things, you'll do well in the gym. So this applies quite broadly.
What are the, you've obviously been in hundreds of businesses. What is the number one thing you keep seeing, which is like, how the hell do these people keep doing this? Is there something you think of? You think, you're still doing like that, are you? Or is it like an old theory people keep applying? Is there something where you think, oh, do you know what, Nick? Every time, 1 out of like 5 businesses I walk into, they've got this bullshit fucking like, rent a dog for a day thing, which then it gives the illusion of happiness. And they're all, I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Like gimmicks, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think the corporate culture thing, whether you have 3 values on the wall, that's an old trope. I think there's a big disconnect between what that actually is supposed to do and what it's currently doing. That's a big problem. 90% of companies have 3 corporate values minimum. One company has as many as 25. It's quite scary how you can embody all of them when you walk in.
The business I worked for, Arthur J. Gallagher, Mr. Gallagher had, I think, 35.
It's just, what's the point? Are you going to walk in going, today I will be courageous, honest, I will be hardworking, I will be disciplined, I will be connected.
I remember looking at that and I was like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I mean, the 10 Commandments was long enough. And then we've got these.
Oh, it is a joke. The other one is recruitment. Big one on recruitment is that people refuse to refer back to their recruitment practices. So they have a recruitment process and then someone will get through it. They stay there for 3 years and they leave. And then maybe they leave in a way that hasn't worked out. What they don't do is go back to when they were recruited and think, how can we make our recruitment process better so this doesn't happen again? So they have what I call stagnant recruitment practices. So it's never improving, which means they're never getting better at letting the right people in other than just their gut feel as a department. So they don't adapt based on when people leave. They only adapt based on what they're currently seeing at that point. And that's something I see that I wish people would just do better with. It's that one's quite disappointing.
Okay, interesting. How long have we got left? We got about 4 minutes left. Okay,
yeah, it's an express
interview. How is it running? Obviously, it's called Founders with Nick, and we haven't dived too deep. But how is it running your business now? What was a couple of things you listening to? If somebody listening now, Ross, that wants to make the jump to start their own business, what would you say? Actually, guys, make sure you've got 10K in the bank and a business plan. Or how did you make the jump?
Yeah, it's interesting. I can only say where I'm at now, and I'm only 2 years in. So, take it with a pinch of salt. What I've learned that could probably speed up that process in the first 2 years. I think the analogy of when you're stood at a path in a forest, right, and you can only see maybe 1 or 2 turns ahead, right? A lot of people want to plan 10 turns ahead, but the only way you can figure out what's on past turn 2 is actually walking down it. So give it a go. I think you'll always regret not giving it a go. If you're thinking about starting something, just do it. You do not know how it's going to go till you actually get a couple turns down, and it's then going to change. Something I found as well is I tried really hard to get good at the things that I'm rubbish at, which, you're a good salesman. I'm not a great salesman. I can do it to a proficient level, but finding people that can help you in any way you can on the bits you're not good at and focus on the bits that you're really good at. The reason you'll be good is because of the thing that you're top 1% at. I'm very good at speaking in front of a group and creating sessions. That's what I love doing. And I'm fairly shit at pretty much everything else in business, or I'm okay. So finding people to do that stuff and let me do the thing, because the thing that will make people employ me is that, and not me trying to get into the 30% of salespeople. So maybe there's someone like you or someone else that you can go to and say, look, can you set up a bit of a sales process, pay a bit of money, take a bit of short-term pain?
Leverage their expertise and subject matter.
That's a big one for businesses. Things that I see all the time that I hate, an inability to see past 3 months in the future. They literally are under so much pressure that they can't do it. That was a big one. Sorry, I just reminded myself.
No problem.
That would be my advice, though. Just give it a crack and be really good at what you're good at.
Well, Ross, I think that was super interesting, super insightful. It wasn't a super long podcast, but thank you so much for coming on.
Probably better though, isn't it?
Yeah, but look, I enjoyed it. From your rugby career, the Mercedes on lease, from actually going to America, coming back, starting your own business, and being around high performing cultures for the best part of like over a decade. Super inspiring. And what I think is really cool as well was that you haven't really given up. There could have been loads of opportunities you could have had to go down the doldrums, spiral at any point, really find some trouble, wake up in alleyways drunk.
Yeah.
But you've persevered through all of that. You've now got a successful business. 2 years in, still employed.
Yeah. Still there. still hanging on.
So you can always go back as well. People always forget that. You can always go back.
Yeah.
But no, thank you so much for coming on. And this is going to be a really interesting one for everybody to listen to, hopefully.
Yeah, mate. Nick, pleasure. Thank you for having me on.